Hello, YouTubers and NFL fans everywhere. This is Matt, the NFL Fanatic, giving you my 2020-2021 NFL Divisional Round Playoff Weekend predictions. Well, for the Fanatic, for last week during Super Wildcard Weekend, the Fanatic results were average and slightly above average, to be frank. So last week against the spread, I went 3-2-1. And straight up, I went 3-3, which is 500. The push was the Washington-Tampa game. Tampa won, but they won by 8 points. The Washington football team was an 8-point underdog, so there was the push there. So thank you for the push in that regard, because that could have probably, depending on how close that game was, could have got me a 500 both ways. And 500 is one of those records where you're not always, you're not disappointed in it, but you're not satisfied with it. That's what 500 is, 50-50. So, and now overall for the year after Super Wildcard Weekend, I am now against the spread 129, 125, and 8 against the spread. And straight up, I'm now 174, 87, and 1 straight up. That equals to 50.8% against the spread, and straight up 66.6%. So overall, a good year and a good way to start the postseason without a losing record. But hopefully in the final 7 games, I can go on a nice 7-0 streak to get to. That would be 10 and 3 or 13 and 3. That'd be nice to see how that goes. But I will talk about the games very quickly from what happened last weekend, and I'll get into my picks. So when you look at the Bills-Colts game, what a game by Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills, winning their first playoff game since 1995 for the 6,000 people that were allowed to participate in that game. Congratulations. What a moment for Bills Mafia and those fans that they will remember for the rest of their lives, since for the first time in 26 years, the Buffalo Bills won a playoff game, beating the Indianapolis Colts 27-24. I thought Josh Allen played a very good game. He threw for around 320 yards. He had another 54 on the ground. He actually was the leading rusher over his teammates Devin Singletary and Zach Moss, who suffered a ankle injury and had to be carted off in the fourth quarter, where Frank Reich made a dumb challenge. So I wish Zach a very quick recovery, but I do not expect him back in the postseason. And for the Bills, I thought it was a very good offensive performance. And Josh Allen, again, first Bills quarterback in franchise history to have 70% completion percentage in 4 straight games. So job well done to him there. But I looked at the biggest reason why the Bills won was because of Frank Reich and the aggressive analytic nature of Frank Reich's coaching. And I'm somebody that likes numbers, but I just don't understand analytics to the extent of where there's conventional wisdom. And people would say, conventional stuff, it doesn't matter. Well, to me it does. Because there's just points where you're like, okay, you're up 3. You don't go for it on 4th and 4 and, try to take the lead. It's like, well, if you make it there, everything works. And sure, I totally get that. If the coin had flipped, I would have given Frank Reich a tremendous amount of credit, and I probably would have. But he didn't. But I just think, again, like that decision. You look at the decision to go for 2 after the Zach Pascal touchdown and then get it. Those decisions really cost the Colts at least, 2 to 3 or 4 points in the game, and they ended up losing by 3 points. They could have won the game if he essentially would have made those decisions beforehand, or differently. If he kicks the field goal and they get the extra point off 2-point conversion, they win the game. I know it's retrospect, but still, there's a reason why conventional wisdom, I think, genuinely, should have more precedent than it does. Or this new wave of analytics and all that crap. I just don't get it. Because it makes, again, I'll say it again. It makes Frank Reich look like an absolute idiot. In fact, it makes him look like Doug Peterson, who, from what I just heard, he's having a meeting tomorrow with the management, and look where that might end up. That might end up on Doug Peterson on his keister after getting fired just 3 years after winning the Super Bowl. So, Frank, if you keep going with that aggressive analytic stuff, if you fail next year with either a 39-year-old Phillip Rivers or Jacob Eason, you could be getting fired next year on your keister, on the rear, on your rear end, next year, and partly due to your idiotic, aggressive analytic calls. But I digress on that. I thought though the Colts, though, they had a nice game plan Taylor and Hines ran the ball well. They couldn't particularly catch it well, but they could run it well. And Phillip Rivers had a nice game, arguably his second best statistical game in his postseason career, behind the 2007 divisional round where he threw three touchdowns and a pick. He only threw for 198 yards that game, but still, arguably the second best game of Rivers' postseason career statistically. But though for the first time in his career, though, he did lose a wild card playoff game, first time in 6 tries that happened. So he now falls to 5-1 in the wild card round. When you look at the Rams-Seahawks game, that was a game primarily built off of the defensive power of the Rams and the offensive struggles of Russell Wilson and the offensive line of the Seattle Seahawks. There were 5 sacks that the Rams defensive line were able to generate. Aaron Donald, who has the most sacks against Russell Wilson, was able to get one or two more in the game. And Aaron Donald had to leave due to a rib injury, and I think he has some broken or fractured ribs right now. But Sean McVay said after the game that he's expected to play, or he's hopeful that Aaron Donald could play next week against the Packers. But just looking at the Rams, Cam Akers, 176 yards rushing on the ground, looked incredibly impressive. Was getting through wide open holes and making Seahawks miss on a consistent basis. It was a consistent grind. And ironically, I think if you look at it, Jamal Adams might have saved. It's kind of like where with Carson Wentz last year, Clowney kind of helped the Seahawks this year. Very similar incident. A very aggressive, arguable, dirty play by a Seattle defender knocks out the starting quarterback. The backup comes in. Last year, though, it was Josh McCown, which pretty much sealed the win. This time it was Jared Goff, the starting quarterback. And even though he only completed 9 of 15 passes, he did have the 1 touchdown. But he was able to make some nice runs and some key throws to win, which I don't know John Wolford would have been able to do. Do I think John Wolford could have been more extendable? Sure, because John Wolford is a better athlete. But that's how the Rams won that game. It snapped a 10-game home winning streak for the Seahawks in the playoffs. The last time the Seahawks lost a playoff game, you have to go back to the 2004 season where they lost to the St. Louis Rams at the time in Seattle in the 2004 wildcard game. And when you look at the Seahawks moving forward, they really need to address the offensive line, in my opinion. It is the one position that for Pete Carroll, for his entire tenure, he's really never invested a lot into it. I like the 2 assets of Dwayne Brown, even though he's aging and entering the final year, I believe, of his contract extension he signed with Seattle, and Damian Lewis, the right guard out of LSU. The other pieces of the offensive line are, to me, grade A trash. That offensive line cannot hold up. And I know, look, Russell Wilson, and I'll be honest, I'll be critical. Russell Wilson, by the end of the year, was playing mediocre at best and below average on a more consistent basis. He ended up in the last 4 games only completing about 56% of his passes. He had the only pick 6 off a screen pass to Darius Williams, who actually gained his 3rd interception on Russell Wilson in a single season. I don't think any other player in NFL history will be able to say that they were able to pick off Russell Wilson 3 times in a single season, especially in 3 games for that same team. And I just think Seattle was in a place to where they're going to get to where they're just like the Titans, or they're just like the Saints over the last few years. They're going to be a playoff team probably more often than not. They may not win a division every year, but Russell Wilson and that talent will be good enough, whatever they join together, whatever they draft, to win enough games to make the postseason. But are they ever going to get back to the Super Bowl with Russell Wilson in this current state? I would say no. I know they have some defensive pieces. The front seven's good. It's not great, but it's good. But the back end's really shaky. The offensive line's really a problem. And I essentially just am looking at Russell Wilson's career being very much like Drew Brees' and that perception. A quarterback that's going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer, one of the best, of all time to do it. The cornerstone and the greatest athlete of his franchise's history, and that's Seattle. But he will, he'll win a bunch of regular season games. He'll win a couple division titles. He might win a playoff game every once in a while. But will he ever get a second ring? Probably not. He probably won't get a second ring. And for everything he was able to do statistically and winning-wise, that may not matter nearly as much due to the lack of playoff success moving forward for the Seahawks, especially in their current state. To move quickly to Tampa and Washington, Tampa did its job offensively. 31 points. Tom Brady threw for 380 yards, 2 touchdowns. He extends his all-time postseason winning record to 32-10. He was able to, put up more, 280 more yards to his passing record. Antonio Brown had another touchdown reception. He's actually done a really nice job for 4 straight games of a touchdown pass. And I was impressed with how they were able to run the ball. Leonard Fournette had his second best game of his Bucs tenure behind the Carolina game, even though that was predominantly off of one big run that Fournette was able to rip off. But the one thing I would say to Bucs fans is that Tampa defense is very concerning. Because I saw Taylor Heineke put up a way better effort than I think he should have been able to do. He was able to make a lot of nice runs, some nice scrambles. He made that great throw to Cameron Sims. Steven Sims had a few nice receptions. Terry McLaurin was able to get a couple good pieces going. But it always just felt like, to me, as I was watching the game, the Washington offense felt way too comfortable at times to just be able to move the ball and convert on third down consistently, which is going to be a problem for the Bucs because they were playing three teams. Two of them they beat, and Green Bay that pretty much just kind of unraveled after Rodgers threw back-to-back interceptions. That those three teams have enough talent, experience, and rest to beat the Bucs in the next round. And I think with that defense, that's going to be an issue moving forward. Do I think Brady, can he continue his momentum? Sure, because at the end of the day, it's Tom Brady in the postseason, and there's nobody that has had more experience in these moments, in these scenarios, than Brady. So that always will be in the play there. But I just think for the Bucs, that defense has to be a massive concern, just of how limited and how consistently you can move the ball through the air on the Bucs secondary. Also, I do want to wish Alex Kappa a speedy recovery. I believe he suffered a fractured ankle, and he's out for the rest of the year. But one of their starting offensive linemen is down once again for the rest of the year. The Ravens over the Titans, that was just a old school Baltimore, Tennessee game. Fun fact, the road team in the postseason is able to win this postseason game every single time. So the home team usually does not play well. Lamar Jackson had over 300 total yards from scrimmage, including the big 46-yard touchdown run that looked very Michael Vick-esque against the Vikings in the 0-2 overtime. I thought that Lamar, at times, was able to make some very nice and accurate throws. Hollywood Brown had a 100-yard receiving game, and he was able to get involved in the offense in a lot more different ways than we usually see him. We saw him on drags. We saw him on quick screens. We just put the ball in his hands in space, and he was able to make massive plays throughout the whole game. But I think the biggest winner of that game was the Baltimore Ravens defense, with the additions of Calais Campbell and Derek Wolfe combined to Brandon Williams, led the defensive front of the Baltimore Ravens to limit Derrick Henry to his lowest rushing total in the entire season at 40 yards, and the lowest rushing game he has had since 2018 when he, I think, ran for 28 yards before, and the second lowest postseason game. The first one was the New England Patriots game, his second postseason game of his career, just 3 years ago. And I thought for the Titans, it was just also hard because essentially they had two weapons. A.J. Brown, who got the big 10-yard touchdown on all-pro cornerback Marlon Humphrey, and then Anthony Ferkser, who was able to get the most yards out of the tight end position. Everybody else either had very little contributions or no contributions at all, and that included former 5th overall pick Corey Davis, who ended up, I think, leaving the game with an injury or missing the rest of the game, standing on the sideline with an injury. But he had a 0-for-0 day in probably the last game of his Titans career. So, kudos to the Ravens, kudos to Lamar, first playoff win, gets a huge stigma off of him, and now he can just relax, and he knows he can play well. John Harbaugh passes Tom Landry for the most road wins in NFL postseason history to 8. I think that's an incredible accomplishment. It's unfortunate because the Ravens tend to rarely get home games with the Ravens, but if he can win enough road games, at least we're still alive, and we're still playing into this weekend as one of the Elite 8 teams that can get to Super Bowl 55. So, job well done there. Saints over Bears very quickly. That was just what was kind of expected. The Saints, Drew Brees, 290 yards, 2 TDs. Kamara had a nice game. Michael Thomas able to make a nice few good receptions. And the Saints defense just stifled anything the Bears really could do. Though there was one key play in that game, which was very telling, which to me was the trick play or the creative play of Trubisky line out wide. I think it wasn't Mooney, but it was one of the Bears receivers. He was in the shotgun. He gives it to Trubisky, who rolls out to the right. Javon Wims, who a lot of people know from that game, was the one to punch Stanley Gardner-Johnson. And ironically, after that point, Anthony Miller, another Bears wide receiver, ended up punching Stanley Gardner-Johnson again and getting himself ejected from the game. But you just look at that play. If Javon Wims catches that 50-yard touchdown, they go up from being, 7-3 New Orleans to 10-7 Chicago. And I think if the Bears could have had the lead and been able to maintain it and just held on, I think the Saints would have been much different position because they probably would have started cracking because they understood, here we go again, possibly for the 4th straight year. We were going to be out, before we even had a chance. And then finally, the Cleveland Browns over the Pittsburgh Steelers. I am still shaking my head in disbelief about the performance I saw from the Cleveland Browns. To see Marquise Pouncey, a Pro Bowl and a former All-Pro center, snap the ball in the first play of the game. It gave you very much Super Bowl 48 vibes of Peyton Manning. Unfortunately for the Steelers, they weren't like the Broncos who were able to recover themselves to go with a safety. No, they let the ball go backward, and I believe it was Carl Joseph who picked up the ball to get the touchdown for the Browns that started the misery. Ben Roethlisberger, he threw for 500 yards. He threw the most completions in a postseason game. I think he threw the most attempts in a postseason game because I think he ended up throwing 68 times. That all didn't matter because it got erased with 4 interceptions. One to MJ Stewart, one to Adam Gostis, the former Bronco and Jag player. Another one to Sheldon Redwine. The third one, and then the fourth one was to Saomi Takitaki. And that was the worst one because essentially Big Ben threw the ball telegraphically or textbook to Takitaki. He did not see the linebacker drop back, and that was the worst one. They could not run the ball. They ran it under 60 yards, and that was the most points the Steelers had given up in postseason franchise history. What a sad way for the Steelers to end from an 11-0 start to a 1-5 finish with an 11-point margin of loss. And fun fact, apparently if you turn the ball over 3+ times in a regular season game, you usually win by 11 points. So the Steelers held true to the standard of what was going on. I think for the Browns, look, it's the biggest one they've had since they come back to Cleveland. Arguably the second biggest one they've had since the 88 divisional round. Or the 88 and 89 divisional rounds when they got to the AFC Championship game against the Broncos both years and lost to the drive and fumble respectively. I thought it was impressive for Baker, who had 300 yards and 3 TDs, no picks. Chubb and Hunt were able to make some quality runs when they needed to. I thought Landry had a nice big touchdown reception. I thought the defense getting 4 turnovers was huge. And I thought Stefanski, he reset the culture. Because that team, in usual perspectives, I don't think they would be in that scenario at all. I don't think that if it was the old Browns, or as Juju said, the same Browns, they would have folded after everything that went on with COVID and all the other issues. But this is a different Browns team. Kevin Stefanski and the Browns have a brand new culture, a new mindset, and I would tell the Kansas City Chiefs, watch out, because they will not, go away lightly. And I do think the Browns will be much more competitive than people think against the Chiefs. All right, so time for my picks and thoughts for this week's divisional games. So on Saturday at 4:35 on Fox, the first game, when the number 6 seeded Los Angeles Rams go to the number 1 seeded Green Bay Packers. The Green Bay Packers are 7-point favorites in this game. I like the Green Bay Packers here to win straight up, but give me the Los Angeles Rams +7. Then the Saturday night game, when the number 5 seeded Baltimore Ravens go to the number 2 seeded Buffalo Bills at Bill Stadium in Orchard Park. The Buffalo Bills are 2.5-point favorites in this game. In an upset here, a slight upset. I'm not doing this because I'm a Ravens fan. I'm not homering here. I'm going to take the Baltimore Ravens here +2.5 and the Baltimore Ravens straight up. Then on the Sunday game, when the number 6 seeded Cleveland Browns go to the number 1 seeded Kansas City Chiefs, the Kansas City Chiefs are 10-point favorites in this game. I like the Kansas City Chiefs here straight up, but give me the Cleveland Browns +10. And finally, in the Sunday night game at 6:40 on Fox, when the number 5 seeded Tampa Bay Buccaneers go to the number 2 seeded New Orleans Saints, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are 3-point underdogs in this game. I'm going to take Tampa Bay here +3 and Tampa Bay straight up. All right, it's time for my quick thoughts on each game. The Green Bay Packers over the Los Angeles Rams. This one to me is simple in the fact that I think the Rams, they have a defense that can limit the Packers. They have a pass rush, they have a run defense, and they have a running game in Cam Akers that can give the Packers a lot of issues. Because if you look at the 3 losses the Packers had, what was the key thing that happened? The Rams, the Bucks could rush 4, the Colts could rush, and they had dominant running games. And I look at Cam, Malcolm, and Darryl, or what Darryl Actually, Darrell won't play, but Cam and Malcolm, or what Cam Akers are able to do behind the offensive line with Andrew Whitworth back, the Rams can push that Packers defensive line at a pretty good clip. And I like the matchup of Devontae on Jalen. I like the fact that the Troy Hills, the Darius Williams, the John Johnsons, the Taylor Rapps, like those defense pieces, the Floyds, the Ebukongs, the Brockers, they can get after Green Bay, and I think they can limit that offense enough to put Rodgers in third and long situations and blitz him and get a lot of pressure with just 4 guys. But the problem why I have to take the Packers is this. I don't know about the status of Jared Goff. I genuinely don't know. With Jared Goff, his status, John Wolford, they said that, he came back for the team. He could, play possibly, but Sean McVay is going to keep that to the vest. And with that, even in the cold, because playing in Seattle and playing Green Bay are 2 totally different things. And with that uncertainty, I have to take the Packers. Because I just feel like with the Packers, they're rested. They're getting the home field advantage. It's a West Coast team all the way coming out to that environment. Jared Goff had a tough time playing in the heat in Tampa and Miami. I can't imagine, playing in the cold with that, swollen thumb to see what's going to happen. Do I think the Rams have a shot? Yes. Because I think if the Rams can get pressure, they can get turnovers. The Packers defense is not as good as the Rams. But with the quarterback uncertainty and looking at Rodgers playing as well as he has been, I think Devontae and Jalen will be key. I think Devontae, it's not going to be like DK and Jalen, where it's just physical, dominance. No, I think it's going to be, can Devontae's mind and route running beat Jalen? Can Devontae outthink and outmaneuver Jalen instead of where DK, it's more of a physical, man-on-man physicality, which Jalen won, obviously. Even though DK had 90 yards, it really wasn't meaningful yards because the Rams were pretty much ahead by 10 points for the most part. I think this game is going to be great, and I'm going to give the Rams a good shot. And I would not be surprised if the Rams pulled this off, but with the quarterback uncertainty and just the cold environment, I have to go with the Packers on this one. So that's like the Green Bay Packers are straight up, but the LA Rams +7. The next game, the Baltimore Ravens over the Buffalo Bills. This is one to where I am taking the Ravens based on the fact that I'm going to trust Lamar Jackson over Josh Allen. These 2 teams played each other a couple years ago in 2019. I believe week 15. It was a competitive game. It was 24-17. Josh Allen played well and the Ravens were running, but Josh Allen ended up making, 1 or 2 tough throws and 1 or 2 more mistakes than Lamar Jackson didn't. I think Lamar was able to run better. He had the big throw to Hayden Hurst. And I just feel like to me that it's kind of the same formula. Is Josh Allen way improved from just last year or did the last playoff run? Absolutely. And I think the one thing that Ravens fans need to realize is everybody's going to go, holy crap, how are the Bills' defense going to stop the Ravens? Josh Allen is a pretty good athlete. And I actually think that the Ravens have to have the same kind of formula. We need to keep Josh Allen in front of us because I honestly think I would rather have Josh Allen beat us with his legs than his arm. Kind of the same way. I think that would be the key. I think they have to have Josh Allen win with his arm than his legs because Josh Allen is a good athlete. He's not Lamar, but he's darn near close. He's actually led the league in rushing touchdowns a little bit longer beforehand. But I just think with the Ravens, this is a hotter team coming into a scenario to where the environment's not going to be that big of a factor because we're a running and defensive-based team. And I just think from what I saw from the Colts, I feel like you can run the ball on the Buffalo Bills. I don't know if Josh Allen, primarily having one healthy weapon, Stephon Diggs. So, Marlon Humphrey, Diggs, or Peters, Diggs, that's about I'd give probably Diggs this year a little slight edge, but that's a good matchup I could have one-on-one. Everybody else in the Bills' offense, Dawson Knox had the broken up touchdown pass. But essentially, besides that, I can trust the Ravens' defense to limit the Bills' offense receiving-wise. And with only having Devin Singletary and TJ Yeldon, who they're probably going to promote from their practice squad as their only active running back, I can trust that we can make the Bills one-dimensional and keep Josh Allen in front of us. Can the Bills make some defensive plays? Sure, they can. And, they've been able to get some turnover play. I remember they said they were the top turnover team in the fourth quarter. But I just feel like, again, if it comes down to it, both these teams give me Lamar Jackson's dynamicness and better decision-making over Josh Allen's, because Josh Allen did have some tough moments, and they almost squandered a 14-point lead. I think if the Ravens, with the confidence of what happened, they're not going to be as daunted by the Bills as they were with the Titans, because it's a different style. And I just feel like, again, the Bills are a bit more shaky, where the Ravens, they've been in the playoffs 3 straight years. This will be Allen's only 3rd postseason game. For Lamar, this will be his 4th, so he has a little more experience. But it's just that idea of there's no pressure on him and the squad, and I think that's significant. So that's why I'm going to take the Baltimore Ravens here plus 2.5, and Baltimore straight up. The next game, the Kansas City Chiefs over the Cleveland Browns. This one's fairly easy. Look, congrats to the Cleveland Browns. Massive moment. Have all the icing in the world. Have house money. Nobody cares what's going to happen with the Browns. And I think, again, the Browns, they have the momentum. They have all the upside of just being able to play loose. But this is Kansas City we're talking about here. You can look at the rust and go, sure, they had a 7 or 8 game win streak of one-score games. And you could say, look, this team can, be had. Essentially, last time we saw Mahomes, he scored the 2nd lowest amount of points in his entire career behind the Indianapolis game. When I look at this game, I think the key is going to be, can the Browns manage the clock? Because they are not going to be able to, I think, have the opportunities. Mahomes does not throw as nearly as many turnovers, will have as many mistakes as Ben Roethlisberger did and the Steelers did through that first quarter. They're not going to get a 28-0 lead right off the bat against the Chiefs at all. I don't think it's going to happen. And they're playing Andy Reid off a bye, who has the best record in the NFL history coming off a bye. But I think the Browns, if they can run the ball and exploit the Chiefs' defense for opportunities, and can they get Mahomes rusty and just be able to drain the clock and score touchdowns, to where if they have a 10-point lead, if Mahomes makes a mistake or they get him 3 and out, I think they can hold on to that through their running game and through their consistency. And Baker, I think, can move the ball on this Chiefs defense. I saw Drew Brees do it. I saw Tua make some nice throws against this defense. Tom was able to get a good second half run. And this Chiefs team, they have a lot of, pressure on them. They are presumed to be the next dynasty, including by me. So if they're in this spot where they're down 10 or 14, are they like the Ravens? No, I think that, they could come back. But remember, this same team was in this divisional round just last year, and they had a 24-point deficit. So, I don't know. And here's the thing. I think Stefanski, if that happens or something, I think that Stefanski culture can hold up much more than Bill O'Brien's could. But I look at the Browns-Chiefs game in very much a way to where, look, Mahomes and them, they're rested. They have the talent. They have the offensive talent. They're not going to, sleep around. They're not going to put any bulletin board material like Juju. And the Chiefs just been clearly better from the start. And if you put the game on Baker's hands most of the time this year, it hasn't turned out well. So I think the Chiefs should easily, win this game straight up. But I'm going to give the Browns their due. They have the formula. They have the lack of pressure. They have the running game. And they have the ability to maybe exploit the Chiefs' rest in order for them to make this competitive and make the Chiefs sweat. That's where I think this game is going to be, a more competitive game than people will expect. Because honestly, if it was the Ravens and Chiefs and Steelers that go into Buffalo, I think everybody would have said, okay, that would have been more entertaining and that would be more fun. I think the Browns will put up a better fight than what the Chiefs were able to do. I think they will put up a better fight than they were able to do. But we'll see. So that's why I like the Kansas City Chiefs here straight up, but give me the Cleveland Browns plus 10. And finally, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers over the New Orleans Saints. I'm taking the Tampa Bay Buccaneers here based off of the fact that I believe in this moment the Bucs have been on a great roll. And I know you could say they beat a bunch of scrubs, including the Washington football team, the last playoff team. They beat a bunch of scrubs. But in this moment, looking at the Saints, looking at how shaky Breeze has been since his rib injury, and I know the Saints, they're healthy, they're fully healthy, and it kind of showed. This is a moment to where I feel like the Saints' pressure is on the fact that this is Breeze retiring. Tom Brady said he's already coming back, and you could argue that there is some pressure on the Bucs too, because they essentially might have Tom Brady for one more year, 2 at best, because of Brady's past statements. But I just feel like, again, I'm going to take Tom Brady in this matchup. This is a playoff game, with a confident Brady. The defense I am concerned about, and this will be a shootout. If so, whatever number there is over, take the over. I would tell anybody that. I don't do over-unders here, but take the over. This is going to be a shootout. Because I do not see the Saints being able to do what they did back in Week 9. It's not going to be a 35-3 blowout. If that happens, that is the ultimate indictment for the Bucs. And for Bruce Arians, that might be the end. But even though Breeze retires, it may be different. But still, that would be just a horrible way for Brady to end against the Saints team. And I just feel like with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they have the motivation. They were humiliated. And usually in these matchups, okay, and I was watching TV earlier, and here's the record. So in 22 times this has happened, where division rivals have played 3 times, the team that won both times before usually gets the third one. There were 8 other times where the other team won the third time. So, my odds are not going, are going to be that, in favor. But I genuinely believe that Brady and this Bucs team, they're motivated. And the Saints, they looked solid, but there were stretches there to where the Bears were holding on. And I feel like the Bucs offense is way better than the Bears. And I feel like that will kind of help them. I feel like Drew, he was able to, I don't think they're going to be, going to be able to kill the Bucs secondary as nearly as bad. I could be dead wrong. But even in the first game of the year, it was an 11-point game. I know it was pretty decisive, but that was the first time Brady and them all got together. The second time, that was just Drew Brees, and the Saints just more mercilessly taking the will out of the Bucs team. And I think the key player that everybody will have to look out for is a guy named Tyler Hendrickson, a 4th-year player out of, I think, Florida Atlantic, or is a small school, who has been dominant. He didn't play last week because of a neck injury, but he will be the one key defensive player that I think can wreak havoc for the Bucs, or if he's not playing, could basically give the Bucs a chance to win this game. And again, I could, be looking at Brady in this whole light, but it's just like, at the end of the day, I've seen the Saints play, and they beat up a Bears team. Good for them. They're not going to go one and done for 3 straight years. In this moment, if I had to go with Tampa's offense and Tom Brady, or Drew Brees and Drew Brees, I'm going to go with Tom Brady in this game. I'm not going to be surprised at all if the Saints win. They've been the better team. They've shown it through the regular season, and pretty much conventional wisdom is going to tell people, including, most people, to go with the Saints. And I fully can understand why people will take the Saints in this game. I'm taking Tampa Bay because I think Brady knows this moment. He's prepared. He's motivated. This team has been on a good roll. They'll limit Kamara, and I just think the Bucs just pull out a nail-biting win based off of Tom's experience and just the history of the Saints in these divisional rounds, in these moments, collapsing more often than not in recent years. It's going to be a great game. Second best game of the weekend. If I had to rank all the games, I'm going Ravens-Bills 1, Bucs-Saints 2, Rams-Packers 3, Browns-Chiefs 4. No offense. Browns-Chiefs 4. These 2 games, that game is going to be a fantastic game. And I'm going to take TB12 to beat DB9. That's my big decision now. So that's why I like Tampa Bay here +3 and Tampa Bay straight up. And those are my picks for this week. Like, comment, rate, and subscribe. Please check out the NFL YouTube Prognosticators page to check out other great prognosticators such as Fire and Brim Sports, Nam's Noodles, Half Moon's Picks, Bridgewater's Finest. There is Gridiron Blitz, Sports Fan Entertainment. Check out all those guys and gals that make predictions like I do every week during the NFL season. And until next week, for my Conference Championship Weekend predictions, this is Matthew Fanatic signing off. Until next time, so long.